She is so down to earth. She makes people learn by just being grounded. And that's the best part about her. And when we're talking about her, one of the things which she masters is the area of storytelling, is the technique of storytelling. And not just for trainers and coaches. Stories can change the way you are leading your world. Stories can change. You are leading your lives, both personal and professional. And stories make a lot of things fun, a lot of things exciting in your lives. And that's why she is here with the next talk, which is the art of storytelling, all the way from Singapore. Let's clap for Cindy Wuyawan. Let's clap for Cindy.
Thank you, Kaushik. And I can say the same about you. You are so knowledgeable and you are a fantastic trainer, but you are still so down to earth. So thank you for that amazing introductions. And hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Wirawan, and I am so pleased to be here with you. I want to make sure that everybody can see my slides. So if you can see my slides, could you please type a yes in the chat box? I've done this sort of online webinars quite a number of times since COVID-19, and sometimes I still make technical mistakes, like simple mistakes like letting everyone see my presenter mode. And I did that the other time, and it was so embarrassing because they could see like my next few slides. So I was like happily doing it until halfway somebody told me, Cindy, you're showing us everything like your presenter mode. And I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't anyone tell me earlier? So if I'm doing that, make sure that you are telling me in the chat box. I see a lot of yes, so I'm pretty sure that I am doing the right thing, and let's hope that this continues. All right, so if you see my name, where do you think I'm from? I know that we've got people from all over the world here, and I just wanted to see your knowledge of Asian names. Where in the world do you think I'm from, or I'm originally from? Okay, let me give you a hint. I was actually born in the same place as the previous speaker, Victor. Yes, Wirawan is an Indonesian name. But I'm from Singapore because when I was 6 years old, I moved to Singapore. And it was the worst time of my life. My mom told me that I would cry every single night except for Saturday night and Friday nights. Why? Because there's no school the next day. I hated school, and I would beg her, can we please go back to Indonesia? I hate it here. I have no friends here. People are bullying me. And that's true because I couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak Mandarin. So every time I go to school, I remember that like people would try to talk to me, and because I couldn't understand them, I would just ignore them. And then they would say that I'm dumb, like I couldn't talk. So I remember being on the school bus every day. I would just sit in the school bus and I would turn my head here to look outside the window so that nobody could see the tears that were streaming down my eyes as my bullies were making fun of me. And so for the first few years of my life in Singapore, I only had a few friends. These were my friends. Books were my friends. I didn't have any friends, so I just went to the library and I kept reading books. And move forward a few years down the road, I actually started becoming top in most of my English classes, either like first, second, or third. And then I ended up becoming an English teacher. And when I became an English teacher, I was in a team where there were a lot of Caucasians, and I felt a bit insecure that I was the only one with black hair and yellow skin. So like English wasn't my so-called native language. But when I shared this story with my students, all of them were like, oh my gosh, Cindy, I feel so comfortable talking to you. You totally understand where we're coming from. I don't feel as comfortable speaking with some of the other teachers, but you are somebody that inspires us because of your story. Because if you can actually improve your English to the point that you can become an English teacher, then there is hope for us. So that is the power of stories. And I know that some of you, for many people, you're wondering, can you tell stories? Some people seem to be better storytellers than others, right? Some people are like born storytellers and they're just a natural at it. But let me tell you something. We are all born storytellers. we're all created to tell stories since the beginning of time. And you just need to learn two things. You just need to tell better stories and to tell it in a better way. It doesn't matter what is your job. If you are a speaker, you're always using stories. We've seen the other speakers, all of them use stories. And even if you're not a speaker, even if you're a parent, you tell stories to your kids. If you're a trainer, you need to tell stories to your participants. If you are a business leader, you need stories to influence the people that you are leading. So, which means all of us need to tell stories. In my work as a career coach, I've helped hundreds of professionals tell better stories during interviews. Because during interviews, if you are not telling your stories the right way, you will not get the job. It doesn't matter if you're the most qualified person for the job, you will not get it if you don't know how to tell stories. Same for business leaders. If you do not know how to tell stories to motivate, to influence, and to engage your employees, it doesn't matter what sort of leadership qualifications you are, because people will not buy into you. So what is the challenge with storytelling? I've trained a lot of people in storytelling, and one of the main challenge is they don't have a structure for their stories. They just like start to tell a story, and you're just like following their story, and then you're wondering, okay, what is the point of this story? Or maybe the story has no ending, and you're like, did I just spend like 7 minutes listening to that person, and I have no idea what is the point this person is trying to make? That is why all of us need a structure if you want to tell stories in an impactful way as well as in an authentic way. Now, this is a different form of storytelling. It's not just the kind of storytelling that you chit chat with your friends over coffee, but this is a more intentional and a strategic way of storytelling. And if you were to master this, you would have mastered the art of influence. So I'm going to share with you a formula. What if there was a formula for storytelling? Would you like to know it? Let me know if you would like to know my secret formula. And this is seldom shared outside because this was something that my mentor taught me many, many years ago. And I have been using it since then, not just for myself, but also for my career coaches and all of my clients. Okay, so storytelling formula. Are you ready? This is going to be worth the money that you pay. Oh my gosh, I just realized you didn't pay anything. So you guys are going to get all of this value for free. Okay, so this is my storytelling formula. It is called VAH. Every single good story has all these three elements. The first one, there's drama. There's a challenge, there's an obstacle. The character has got a big challenge, a big mountain to climb, or they have got a big dream, or there is a huge dilemma, a huge challenge that they cannot overcome. So off they go on a journey, and this is where the action comes in. They fight the monsters, they win the damsel in distress, or they have to overcome their own inner fears in order to become the person that they want to be. And then finally, there is the happy ending. So that makes a great story. And you can see that most fairy tales follow this structure. And not just fairy tales, but most amazing business stories, even Steve Jobs, if you analyze his talk, he actually uses this, V, A, and H. So make sure that you are following these three steps, drama, action, and happy ending, and you will have an amazing, amazing story. And one of the challenges that people tend to forget is they will forget one of these elements. For example, they may forget to incorporate drama. So they'll just come and tell you, yes, boss, I have already finished my report for this year. I have hit my KPIs, and therefore I deserve a pay increment. That's what people do all the time, right? But imagine if you mastered this, right? You could go into your performance appraisals and tell your boss a story of how you managed to overcome the challenges in that quarter, all the things that you did, as well as the positive results you got your company. Would your boss be compelled to give you a pay rise versus the first example? Of course, he would. And this is why storytelling can change your life. So I know that this structure is going to be really helpful for you. And I also wanted to touch on another point. Before this, I wanted to leave you with a very personal story that, again, I seldom share in public, especially on such a platform like this. So, I always believe that authentic stories are real, they are personal, and they even bring the storyteller outside of their comfort zone. So each one of us has an untold story with a powerful message. And I'm going to tell you my story. Now, it's not untold, but it is seldom told. But I would love to give you this story as a gift for you. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm giving you this story at the end of my story. Whenever you meet somebody and they ask you, tell me about your family, how many siblings do you have? For me, I dread this question. I dread the question, how many siblings do you have? Usually, I will just answer, I have a sister, I have an older sister. But the reason why this is such a difficult question for me to answer is because I actually have two sisters. And my younger sister, Lavina, she's no longer around. She's no longer on this earth. And that is why it is so hard for me to answer this question, because I'm wondering, should I say that I have two sisters? Because if I have, they're going to ask me about both of them. And then I have to say that, oh, one of them, she's passed on. And that is just so painful for me to say. So what happened was a few years ago when I was in my early 20s, I actually got a call at work to come home immediately. And when I went home, I found out the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody, which I would not wish on anyone else. And we found out that my younger sister had actually taken her own life. She was only 19 years old. And that devastated me. That just broke me, and I couldn't even want to live on anymore, because she was my best friend and nobody saw it coming. And because of that, I actually found ways to get out of Singapore, because it was just such a painful place for me to be in. Everything reminded me of her. So I managed to get different jobs overseas where I got to travel. I was living in Australia for a few years. And something happened in Australia that really changed me as well, that taught me the power of my sister's story. When I was in Australia, I started to be healed from this tragedy. And a lot of it had to do with my faith. I am a Christian. I believe in God. And even though this happened to me while I was a Christian, I didn't get angry at God. I didn't say, like, God, why did you let this happen to me or to her? Why didn't you stop it? But I still stayed on in my faith. And I went to a Christian community that was very supportive. And I started to serve in church and be very active there. And I realized that there is still a purpose for my life. I could volunteer, I could help people that are in need. And that gave me a renewed sense of purpose for my life. And then I always remember there was this one girl that I was teaching the Bible to her. And one day, she actually disappeared for a few months because she had a really bad medical condition. So one day I went to her house to visit her to just see how she's going. And she was like telling me how difficult it is for her, how the medical condition like was preventing her from getting out of her house, and it was just really, really tough. And something in my heart told me that you need to tell her about your sister. And I was like, no way, I don't talk about such things, like suicide is taboo, like no. And I'm not going to share it with anybody. Like only my friends in Singapore knew about my sister. Like my overseas new friends, they didn't know about it. But I just listened to that voice inside my heart. And I said, like, I shared my sister's story with her. And she started to cry. And she said, You know what, Cindy? There's been so many times recently that I didn't even want to wake up and I wanted to take my life. And I shared with her about how, it's not a solution. It's like every problem that you face right now is temporary. But then if you were to take your life, it's irreversible. It is not a solution. It doesn't help anyone or anything. In fact, you're actually causing a lot of hurt to the ones that you leave behind. And the hurt is even more painful than the hurt you are trying to end by ending your life. So after I told her that, her face changed and she was like, thank you so much for sharing this story with me. And then you fast forward a few more months, a few more weeks, she was back and healthy again. And she actually told me, Cindy, you know what? That night that you came to my house, you saved my life. Because if you had not shared that story, I wouldn't even be here today. So why am I sharing this story with you now? It's because I believe that just like me, every one of you, you have an untold story with a powerful message. And there is someone out there who needs to hear your story, even if it's just one person. If my sister's story can save just one person, I would tell it over and over and over again. And the reason why I shared this story today is actually because today is a really special day. The 23rd of August is my sister's birthday. And usually it is a very tough day for me. But a few years ago, one of my friends changed my mindset about it. She said, rather than crying and moping around for the entire day, your sister wouldn't want to see you like this. Why don't you just celebrate her life? So ever since my friend told me that, every year when it comes to her birthday, I actually started to celebrate her life because I'm grateful for every single year that I had with her. So I'm so thankful that all of you are here to celebrate my sister's birthday with me. And I believe that each of you will have the courage one day to also share your story that can change your world. That is my story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it has encouraged you to share your story. And besides being a storyteller, I am also a story collector because good storytellers, they love stories. They get stories from everywhere. And what I want is I would love for you to tell me your story. And how you can do that is you can get in touch with me on my website. I've got free career resources that you can download. You can get on LinkedIn and connect with me, message me there, and you can also use Instagram to connect with me. If you want more stories from me, I actually post my stories all the time on LinkedIn. So I use a very specific way to share my stories in such a way that it also sells me. That is how I have managed to survive in COVID-19. I actually got 90% of my clients from LinkedIn, and the main way I use it is by sharing stories. In fact, this morning, I actually didn't want to share my sister's story. I was going to share with you my story of how I survived COVID-19 using stories. But then I thought to myself, the title of this talk is Authentic and Impactful Storytelling. Which is more authentic and which is more impactful? And that's the reason why I shared this story with you. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you can connect with me, tell me your stories, and feel free to engage with me on LinkedIn whenever I share a story. Thank you, guys.